It's one of those hot summer days, and back in more than 30 years ago, when I was a kid, during the noon time, it was too hot, and my mom was forcing us to sleep. As you guys know, siesta is important in Aegean region and also in Mediterranean, of course. And during those hot days like today, we were forced to sleep during the noontime, but we were also escaping. And my mom was getting angry with us, of course, but we were just escaping and playing with our friends. But what are you going to do on a hot day? We were looking for a shady area like this and a flat surface also, of course. And we were drawing some board games and playing some, finding some stones and terracotta tiles, broken pieces, and playing board games during the noon times in a shady area. But it was almost every day the same thing, the same play, board game. And I was thinking that we invented actually that board game, but looks like I was wrong, and I'm gonna show you why. So let's go check some interesting place and why I was wrong. We will see there. A couple of months ago, while I was visiting this place, I saw this board game on the pillar. And I said, this is the board game that we used to play back in my childhood. I actually grew up about 5 miles away from here in a small village in mountains, and we used to play the same game. Of course, this is the Saint John Basilica, and that's not the only game we have. Also, here we have the same drawing.
So yeah, there it is, Nine Men's Morris, carved right into stone. Not just a time killer, but a strategy game played by Romans, soldiers, and maybe even pilgrims resting right here. Kind of cool to think before prayers, people were making mills and blocking moves like it was a chess match. All right, game over. Now let's talk about something even bigger, St. John, and the story behind this massive basilica.
Okay, where are we? We are in Saint John Basilica. We're about a mile away from the ancient city of Ephesus. And we're going to be visiting this church and also Saint John Basilica. Okay, of course, we're not here to play board games. That's some interesting stuff, by the way. But we're going to be visiting Saint John Basilica and also the Saint John Church, which is really extremely big church here, beautiful church. And we're going to be talking about the history of this church.
So let's talk about how this massive place came to be. The Basilica of Saint John was built in the 6th century, around the year 548 AD, during the reign of Emperor Justinian Lofer, one of the most powerful rulers of the Byzantine Empire. And this wasn't just a random construction project, it was personal. Justinian believed that St. John was buried right here on this very hill, and he wanted to honor him in the grandest way possible. And when you're the emperor of a Christian empire, well, you build a basilica, a huge one. Now, financing? The money didn't just come from local donations or a bake sale. Nope. It was funded by the imperial treasury, meaning Justinian himself and probably his wife, Empress Theodora, put serious money into this. And if you know anything about these two, you know they didn't do anything halfway. These were the same people who commissioned Hagia Sophia, the biggest church in Constantinople, which later became a mosque, then a museum, and now a mosque again. Um, so yeah, they like to make statements. This basilica wasn't just big for fun. It was meant to be a rival to the greatest churches of the time. It had a massive dome, marble columns, mosaics, decorative chapels, the works. It could have easily held thousands of people. And it wasn't just about size. It was a message, a way of saying, St. John is one of the most important figures in Christianity. This is his final resting place, and this empire will honor him properly. So when you see these ruins now, try to imagine the scale, the color, the sound of footsteps echoing through marble halls, candles flickering, and pilgrims gathering from all across the empire. This wasn't a small town church. This was a spiritual capital. Now, as you walk around these ruins, you'll notice something interesting in the walls. A mix of terracotta bricks and massive marble blocks. And you might wonder, why? Why not just pick one material and go with it? Well, here's the deal. This mix wasn't just random. It was actually a smart Roman and Byzantine building technique, and it was pretty common in large structures back then. Terracotta bricks were cheap, lightweight, and easy to produce. They were great for filling in walls, building arches, or shaping the curve of a dome. Bricks also allowed the builders to work fast and adapt the structure as needed. Marble, on the other hand, was the premium stuff, heavy, expensive, but beautiful and strong. So they used marble in places that mattered most: columns, entrances, altar areas, floors, and decorative elements. Basically, anywhere they wanted to show off. So by combining the two, bricks for structure, marble for style, they got the best of both worlds: strength, speed, and beauty. And in a building this size, you needed both. Imagine trying to build a massive dome completely out of marble. It would take forever, cost a fortune, and probably collapse. So the architects mixed materials for a practical and artistic balance. That's Roman engineering for you, efficient and elegant. Now, here's something most people miss when they walk around these ruins: terracotta pipes, plumbing, sewage, water systems, all hidden under the ground. Yep, that's right. This place wasn't just built for beauty and worship. It was built for comfort and function, too. They had terracotta piping systems running underneath, used for water drainage, maybe even heating in some areas. And just like in Roman bathhouses and villas, they knew how to manage water, how to bring it in, how to drain it out, and how to keep the whole place clean. There are even sewage channels and underground ducts still visible if you look closely. That means this wasn't just a big fancy building. It was a smart one, a place where thousands of people could gather, stay for days, and still have working water systems. So when you think of ancient times, don't imagine people just roughing it in stone ruins. These guys knew comfort. They built infrastructure that, in some ways, puts modern buildings to shame. And here's something really cool. If you look closely around the site, you'll still see teams carefully digging, brushing, and documenting the ruins. Yep, archaeologists are still at work here, even after all these centuries. That's because not everything has been uncovered yet. Beneath these layers of stone and soil, there are still parts of the basilica complex waiting to be discovered. Hidden rooms, maybe chapels, storage areas, or even artifacts left behind by pilgrims. Every year they find something new: a piece of a column, a decorated stone, maybe even a coin or a tiny cross. It's like this site is still speaking. Bit by bit, it's revealing its secrets. So, who was this guy, St. John? Well, this is not just any John. We're talking about John the Apostle, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. You know, the inner circle. He wasn't just a follower, he was one of the closest. Many believe he's the same John who wrote the Gospel of John, and also the one who wrote the book of Revelation while he was exiled on the island of Patmos, just across the sea from here. Yeah, that wild apocalyptic book? That was him. Now, according to early Christian tradition, after all the chaos in Jerusalem, John came to Ephesus, right here, where he lived out his final years, preaching, teaching, and guiding the early church. And this basilica, it was built right over his tomb. Imagine that. You're standing on ground where one of the closest friends of Jesus was buried. Whether you're religious or not, that kind of connection to history, it gives you chills. And even today, this place hasn't been forgotten. Over the years, several popes have visited this very spot, paying their respects to St. John and honoring the legacy of the early church. There's even a board on the wall that remembers these visits, a reminder that this basilica is not just part of history, it's part of living faith. It's moving to see that, even centuries later, this site still brings people together, Christians, Muslims, people of all backgrounds, united in respect for a man who stood beside Jesus and left behind a message of love, truth, and hope. And now, behind the church, look at these massive terracotta jars. They're huge, almost like giant kazan, right? But no, they weren't for feeding pilgrims or cooking lentil soup for 1,000 disciples. These are called pithoi, ancient storage containers. People use them for storing olive oil, wine, grains, even water, basically anything valuable that needed to be kept cool and safe. It's actually pretty amazing to think that right behind one of the holiest churches in the region, there was a whole system of storage and supply. They really thought of everything: comfort, hygiene, even food logistics. Those early builders knew what they were doing. This wasn't just a place to pray, it was a place to live, work, and care for a whole community. And take a look over here. On the side of the church, there are a lot of ruins from extra buildings. You can still see the walls, the rooms, even some entrances. Now, these weren't just random houses. This whole area was probably set up for pilgrims. People were traveling from all over just to visit this holy site, to be close to St. John's tomb. So what did they do? They built accommodation, almost like an ancient pilgrimage hotel. A whole line of rooms, maybe for resting, eating, cleaning up, everything a guest might need after a long journey. It's clear they weren't just thinking about worship. They were also thinking about comfort, hospitality, and care.
Okay, I don't know actually if people used to play board games before the sermon or before the service in this church, but it's a nice place, and maybe you should also visit, because Saint John is here, and it's a peaceful, very calming and very charming place. I like this place and I visited many times. I always visit. Have a nice day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, support, so that we can do more visits like this. And thank you again.